Good afternoon. Welcome to the Mind of STEM channel, where you get your daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. My name is Leon Jones, and I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. In fact, we are in the holiday season, whether you celebrate them or not. So many of us are cooking. So I'm going to dedicate a number of videos to the end of the year on food safety and sanitation. So, what I'm going to talk about today as I share my screen is the first title of this video is Keeping Food Safe. Now, it's very important that you understand it because there are a lot of food illness pathogens going around. You have your chemical, your physical, you have your biological type of contaminants going on. Now, the funny thing about this is what you are going to hear from me comes from ServSafe, which is sponsored by the National Restaurant Association. No, it's not the NRA, it's the National Restaurant Association, that NIA. So what I'm going to do in these 35 slides, I'm going to talk about keeping food safe. So the title of this video is Keeping Food Safe. Now, the objectives, when I identify the following, what a foodborne illness is and how to determine when one has occurred. I have challenges to food safety, cost of foodborne illnesses, and contaminants that can make food unsafe. Now, let's start with the first objective. Identify the following. How food becomes unsafe. Food most likely to become unsafe, populations at high risk for foodborne illnesses, and of course, food safety responsibilities of the person in charge of a restaurant or food operation, or we can say at home, because a lot of us take food safety and sanitation for granted at home. Now, when we deal with foodborne illnesses, it's basically a disease that's transmitted through food to people. Now, an illness is considered an outbreak when two or more people have the same symptoms after eating the same food. Also, an investigation is conducted by state and local regulatory authorities, and the outbreak is confirmed by a laboratory analysis. Now, if you're taking a food service safe serve exam, you need to have this material. Okay, when it comes to food safety, there are, particularly in the restaurant industry and even at home, there are challenges. What do you need to do? Well, you have to overcome these challenges, but in order to do that, you have to know what they are. Now, the challenges include time, language and culture, literacy and education, food pathogens, which we're going to get to further down the line, unproven or unproved suppliers, and of course, in a restaurant, or you can have family members, high-risk customers, and staff turnover. You could also say, if you're at home, individuals running in and out of your house, individuals who are bringing luggage to your house, you can actually bring pests into your house. Some individuals have roaches because individuals bring them in the suitcase and you don't even know it. Now, when it comes to foodborne illnesses, there is a cost to any operation. Now, if you have a business and you're dealing with food, you're going to have a loss of reputation. You're going to have a loss of customers and sales. Morale. In a hospitality industry, morale is already lower because of the high turnover. But when you have foodborne illnesses, it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows and people will stop coming to your establishment. Furthermore, at home, if you're not clean, people are going to stop coming to your house. And then when it comes to media, if you are in a commercial establishment, there's going to be a lot of negative exposure. Okay. Then you go into lawsuits, legal fees, missing work, or if you're at home, you could be missing work as well because you have to continue to make money to pay your bills. Insurance is very high. And when it comes to insurance premiums, they go up. And the food service business, you have to constantly retrain staff, and that is a big cost. Now, when we talk about food service illnesses, how do they occur? Well, you have three types of contamination. You have biological, chemical, and of course, physical. Now, when we deal with contaminants, and you're going to see these three a lot in medical, you're going to see them in the food service industry, and you should identify them at home. But when we deal with biological, we deal with anything that's lifelike or plant-like. So in the biological contaminants category, we have bacteria, we have viruses, fungi. What is an example of a fungi? Poisonous mushroom. We also have parasites. When we deal with chemical contaminants, it's very self-explanatory. What you need to do is not put chemicals near your food. And your chemicals are cleaners, sanitizers, and of course, polishes. Now, the biggest one that a number of us really don't understand, and it does happen, and it's happened to me at home. And the first one is very common, especially if you have a dull can opener. And you also have to watch the cans as well. Metal shavings. Sometimes if you're opening up a can of tuna fish, or if you're opening up a can of tuna fish or a can of cream of mushroom soup, or any type of canned material. And this is why I try not to buy a lot of cans. When it comes to vegetables, I like frozen vegetables because I don't run into that problem. Well, you may find little metal shavings. Those are examples of physical contaminants. You may also, if you collect produce or if you obtain produce from producers or suppliers, you may find staples, and the staples will come from that pallet. Bandages. Some people are working in food service and even at home, and the bandage may fall in food. Glass. Okay, this is one that you need to understand. I know working in the restaurant industry, individuals, when you're getting slammed at night, there's the ice machine. So what individuals do, instead of taking a scoop, putting it in the ice machine, get ice out, put it in glasses, they're taking the glasses and using them as a scoop. Now, the problem with that is glass will break off into the ice. And when that happens, you have to drain the whole ice machine. And even at home, you have to wash this as well. You may have to throw that food or that drink out because you're going to have a physical contaminant. And again, physical contaminants, just like biological and chemical contaminants, can send you to the hospital. Dirt. Now, you're going to see dirt on, I'm going to say potatoes, onions, well, fruits and vegetables that come from the ground. On that dirt, you could have worms. You could also have other environmental factors like fuel, depending on where you are getting the produce from. Natural objects, this is a big one. How many of you have eaten fish? Well, this is why I like to take the bones out of fish. Even a chicken bone, if you don't take the chicken off the bone, could be a physical contaminant. Now, when we deal with food, how does it become unsafe? Well, here are factors to consider. You are most likely purchasing food from unsafe sources. When it comes to cooking, whether you're at home or in a restaurant, you have to know how to cook food correctly. So that means you need to know your temperatures. You also need to learn about thawing food. A lot of people don't know how to thaw food. You also have holding temperatures, equipment like your cutting boards could be contaminated. And last but not least, personal hygiene. Again, what I'm showing you right now, you're seeing how food can be abused. You see the cross contamination. Now, those red spots, that's blood. And blood is probably coming from chicken. Now, it's very important that you, and we'll get into that a little later on, storing. And of course, rotating your food. But you don't want blood from any meat source on your produce. Causes contamination, time temperature abuse. Again, you see personal hygiene, poor cleaning and sanitizing. Now, temperature abuse, so we can break it down. When food has stayed too long at temperatures, that's going to become good for pathogen growth. Food has been time temperature abused when it is not held or stored at correct temperatures. It is not cooked or reheated enough to kill pathogens, or it has not cooled quickly. Also, when we deal with cross contamination, that's basically when you have a pathogen that transfers from one surface or food to another. And at home, a lot of us don't recognize it because we take what we do at home for granted. Now, cross contamination can cause a foodborne illness when, again, contaminated ingredients are added to food that receives no further cooking, ready to eat. Now, when I talk about ready to eat, what am I talking about? I'm talking about food that's already prepared. So that means if you're going to Walmart or Kroger and get some chicken, that's already ready to eat. Bags of salad mix, that's also ready to eat. Now, contaminated food also touches or drips fluids onto cooked or ready to eat food. A food handler, this is very important, and you could be at home handling food as well. So when a food handler basically touches contaminated food and then touches ready to eat food. And something that you got to do, contaminated wiping cloths touch food contact surfaces. Very important. Cleanliness in every establishment is very important. Now, poor hygiene. And where I find poor hygiene, I've seen people come out of the bathrooms without washing their hands, or they cough and sneeze on food, or they touch wounds and then touch food. But here's one that you need to understand. Don't be around food while you're sick because you are going to contaminate food. And also, wash your hands correctly in the restroom. I believe you wash your hands up and down. I believe it's 10 to 20 seconds. But this is all common sense that I'm talking. And if you handle these personal hygiene causes with care, you're less likely to get sick and you're less likely to have to get the 19. I'm going to say it like that. Poor cleaning and sanitation. Okay. One thing, and I've been guilty of this myself. Your equipment and utensils, they're not washed or rinsed between uses. And before you use them again, you have to sanitize them. So in restaurants, they have a wash, rinse, and sanitizing sink. Food surfaces aren't wiped down clean instead of being washed. Let me say that again. Food surfaces are wiped down, but they're not being cleaned, rinsed, and sanitized. You got to use the triple threat wherever you go, at home or in a restaurant. Wiping cloths are not stored in a sanitizing solution between uses. Sanitizing solutions are not at the required levels. Now, there are two types of food that are most likely to become unsafe. TCS food, which we deal with temperature controlled solutions, and ready to eat food. Now, when we deal with TCS food, or it's basically, I call it temperature controlled solutions, but TCS food is basically requiring time and temperature control to limit pathogen growth, time and temperature control for safety. Now, some of the TCS foods, you're going to have your crustaceans, which is seafood, poultry, chicken, fish, eggs, your dairy materials, and you're going to have red meat, which is beef. Now, when we deal with TCS foods, it's already prepared or cooked foods, baked potato. You have vegetables. Looks like peas here. This looks like tomatoes, sprouts, green peppers. Now, when we deal with any types of food, but I'm talking about ready to eat food right now. And ready to eat food is food that can be eaten right out of the box. You don't need any further preparation, washing, or cooking. Now, ready to eat food includes, again, cooked food, washed fruit and vegetables, whether they're whole or cut, deli meat, bakery items, sugar, spices, and seasonings. Now, when we get into individuals who have risk of getting foodborne illnesses, you have to look at who has the highest risk of getting it. Well, believe it or not, you have elderly people, people comprise immune systems, and then you have preschool children. Now, what I'm doing, these slides are based on what you get in restaurants, but you should practice these measures at home as well because you want to be safe. Because some people basically carry their sickness to work and they infect everybody else. Now, in a restaurant, you must be a certified food protection manager, be on site during operation hours or operating hours, but at home, you should follow the same procedures. In a restaurant, a person in charge may not need to be on site at all times, but the operation poses minimal risk for causing a foodborne illness. Now, based on the type of operation it is, based on the type of food that is sold, cashierless markets and convenience stores are examples. Like live in Lafayette, Indiana, so you have places like Speedway and Circle K, to name a few. Now, again, if you are wanting to work in the restaurant industry as a manager, to become a certified food protection manager, you must pass a test from an accredited program. That means if you're here in Indiana, go to Ivy Tech or Purdue or Ball State or even Indiana State. But the test is 90 questions. They basically throw 10 out. The 10 they throw out are research questions. You have to pass the ServSafe exam with a score of 75 or better. Now, there are other ones out there like Prometrics, 360. You have to look at what your state will require. But if you're going to work in the food industry, you have to have someone who is certified because they have to train their people. Not only that, the program must be accredited by an approved agency or a conference for food protection, like Serve Safe. It's under the National Restaurant Association. And you complete the course and pass an exam. Now, I have a book right here. This is the book that has all the information in it. This is a 7th edition. If you're going to Ivy Tech, you can get it free right now. They'll send it to you. And even if you're not in food service, I suggest you get that book, because a lot of us book and we are unaware or unconscious about how we cook foods at home. And it's very important because we are running to the elements. You don't want to be sick, because once you're sick, you're out of commission for a little bit. Sometimes you may require an emergency room visit. Now, again, when it comes to being a certified food protection manager, the CDC suggests from their study that it reduces the risk of foodborne illnesses. Also was a distinguishing factor between restaurants that experienced an outbreak and those that had not. And then you have FDA studies, because the FDA controls the food, not the USDA, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. Studies suggest that more effective control of risk factors for foodborne illnesses. Okay, now, here are the key practices for ensuring food service safety. And you must focus on these measures. Very important. Number one, you got to purchase from an approved, reputable supplier. Number two, you have to control time and temperature. Number three, you're there to prevent cross-contamination. Number four, practice personal hygiene and proper clean and sanitizing. Very important. Very important. If you utilize those 5 attributes or characteristics, you will prevent cross-contamination. And you should do this at home as well. Now, again, I'm just giving you information on what you need to do if you want to be a food safety certified manager, because your duties are going to be, you're going to monitor temperatures during hot and cold holding. You're also going to ensure food is not prepared in a private home where people are living or sleeping. Restrict people other than food handlers from prep, storage, and dishwashing areas, and you will ensure maintenance and delivery workers follow proper food service or food safety practices. Monitor staff hand washing. Again, the responsibilities of a manager: monitor deliveries to ensure food is safe, and breaking it down, approve source, correct temperature, protect from contamination, and accurately present it. Also have to ensure TCS food is cooked and cooled correctly. That means it's got to be cooked to required temperatures. And something too, a lot of us use devices for measuring temperature. Well, that temperature might not be right. You have to calibrate your thermometers to make sure that everything is accurate. Now, here in America, we use the Fahrenheit system. So 32 degrees Fahrenheit is freezing, 212 is boiling. And when you calibrate your thermometers, some people, they'll start with the temperature of 212. Me, I don't recommend that, because I'm not pulling a thermometer out of boiling water to adjust the nut to make sure that I'm reading 212. So I'd rather go utilize some ice, get it cooled down to 32, calibrate it from there. And you also have to make sure that food is cooled rapidly. I'm going to get into that next batch of slides. FDA Recommended Responsibilities. Of course, when you're in a restaurant, you must ensure guests are properly notified. With that, consumer adversaries for raw or partially cooked food, use of clean tableware in self-service areas. And when I talk about self-service areas, I'm basically talking about buffets. If you go into a Golden Corral, because you have a lot of individuals, especially kids, they love to put their hands on silverware. You don't know whether they wash their hands or not. So when it comes to staff, you have to make sure that your staff is trained on food safety practices, and they include the following: cleaning and sanitizing, handling ready to eat food, allergy awareness, reporting illnesses, and of course, symptoms. Also, food safety procedures are written down, implemented, and maintained. Now, of course, if you want to make a business of food safety, well, offer training, evaluate and update it as needed, discuss food safety expectations, document and maintain food handling procedures, consider awards and rewards for good food safety records, and set a good example. And at the end of the day, when it comes to food safety, I believe everybody should practice it. And we are here in the holidays, and unconsciously, individuals, and I've even caught myself doing some crazy things out here. So I'm aware that proper cleanliness, proper cooking, and proper temperatures will keep you from eating contaminated food, which will make you sick. Now, that concludes this commentary on food safety. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. Now, if you're looking for some political content, check out the 401 Talk Zone radio show. I also catch me on Blog Talk Radio. Now, I am going to get back into Blog Talk Radio because I believe it's needed. And I'll do a little bit more conversation within the Mind the STEM channel and the 401 Talk Zone radio show. Now, if you can't find me on YouTube or Blog Talk Radio, you check me out on Twitter, MeWe and Parler for the 401 Talk Zone radio show. And you can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn for the Mind of STEM channel. Because here on this channel, you get education about science, technology, engineering, and math. And once again, thank you for listening to the Mind of STEM channel, where you get your daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious afternoon.